We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include President Joe Biden letting the truth slip out about the war in Yemen yesterday. Also, violent crime continues unimpeded in most major U.S. cities. We've been seeing it for years. Well, wait till you hear about this new law that Democrats are trying to pass in Washington right now. We have the details, helping criminals one law at a time. Also, a possible Michelle Obama Hillary Clinton ticket. Is that the duo that the DNC's planning to run with, pushing Joe and Kamala aside? Well, wait till you hear what Roseanne Barr has to say. And Charlemagne the God says his listeners are fed up with the migrant issue and blames Biden and the Democrats. We have the tape. Also, more stories that are important and that corporate media doesn't want to touch. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you continue receiving these daily updates. On May 1st, 2023, a deranged homeless man named Jordan Neely began assaulting and harassing fellow passengers on a New York City subway train. As all the men on board just watched from their seats doing nothing to stop him, Daniel Penny, a Marine veteran, stood up and calmly asked the man to stop. But when that didn't work and things continued to escalate and then Neely focused his attention on Daniel, he had no choice but to restrain him by putting him in a chokehold, which ultimately ended his life, unfortunately. A terrible story. Now, at the time, Daniel Penny, he was deemed a hero by his fellow passengers that day. The entire episode, by the way, was captured on video, showed Daniel Penny trying to resuscitate Neely after he realized what had happened. All the eyewitnesses said he clearly acted out of self-defense, but New York City prosecutor Alvin Bragg decided to charge him anyways with second-degree manslaughter, throwing him in jail. This is the same prosecutor, by the way, who tried charging Donald Trump with falsifying business records, or did charge him with that. Well, yesterday, the judge in this case denied Daniel Penny's request to dismiss the case. Now, he faces a trial for a second-degree manslaughter charge. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, she jumped on the bandwagon, calling what happened a public execution. Now, this is just one of countless examples of how our justice system is upside down, especially in New York City. Alvin Bragg, he's notorious for doing this kind of thing. He did the same thing to a bodega worker who was defending himself against a violent thug. Notorious on going easy on repeat offenders, but throwing the book at anyone who defends themselves and ends up injuring the attackers accidentally in the process. This is what it comes to when society begins breaking down. When your government, the people you put in charge to protect you, decide to abandon you instead. When a former Marine veteran has to stand up and do the job police are supposed to do, protecting innocent people who are being harassed and assaulted. And what do they do to him for that? They throw him in jail. It's to send a message that you have to take it. Take the abuse, because if you fight back, you'll be rotting in prison just like Daniel Penny is. So don't even think about it. That's the message being sent to Americans all over big cities in this country. And this week, if you think it couldn't get worse, if you thought that the people in charge couldn't be any more blatant and obvious of their support of this, well, think again, because Washington is now in the process of passing a new law called SB 5444 that bans armed self-defense, prohibits any self-defense weapon that you carry, including legally purchased knives and guns at bus stops and transit centers, areas like the subway, which means women, elderly people will be completely at the mercy of these thugs. In another story, MSNBC puts on a segment for the history books, showing their viewers just how low journalism and reporting in this country has sunk after video on Wednesday showed Donald Trump having these red marks on his hand, something like a magic marker maybe, I don't know. The former president is lodged so far up these people's rear ends, they can't help but take something so insignificant like a marker on the inside of his hand and turn it into the end of the world. Watch as this MSNBC panel puts some real thought and effort into investigating the left hand of the former president. Pay particular attention to their level of seriousness in this segment. Watch.
Donald Trump has his hands are bleeding. Looks like he has a sore. Magic marker? No, is it magic marker? Because it looks like he has a sore on his index finger there. I don't know. Maybe it's magic marker. I don't know.
It looks like a cut. I mean, that's blood, isn't it? I don't want to speculate. I don't know, but. Was there anything that happened inside the courtroom yesterday, Lisa? That would...
There was. There was a point in time during the day where Trump, very frustrated with Judge Kaplan, banged his hands down on the table. I doubt that the blisters or marks that we're seeing there come from that, but could they be exacerbated by that? Perhaps.
Yeah, like a toddler having a tantrum, perhaps, and causing bleeding to his hand.
In another story, Joe Biden continues to mentally deteriorate. We all know that. We've all seen it. We've been watching it happen for the last few years. We've seen him get lost coming off his helicopter the other day, not to mention his continuous gaffes and flops whenever he opens his mouth on camera. Well, yesterday, right on cue, when asked if his airstrikes against Yemen have worked to stop the Houthis from attacking maritime traffic in the Red Sea, he actually slipped up and said something true. Normally, these gaffes result in just random imaginary events that took place. But he said something true, saying, nope, the airstrikes aren't working. They haven't stopped anything. The Houthis, if anything, have ramped up their attacks since we began dropping U.S. bombs, but we're going to continue bombing them anyways. Watch this.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
So it's moments like these, right, when people really begin pondering if the Democrat establishment will really allow Joe Biden to run again. It's almost impossible to even imagine him campaigning against Donald Trump, debating Trump again. He's just deteriorated mentally so much since 2020, and it's frightening, in my opinion, to imagine what he would look like at the end of his second term, which I personally don't think we would ever see if he does end up being the Democrat nominee and he manages to win the election somehow. Let's just say he does somehow. I'm fairly confident that he would end up stepping down shortly thereafter, possibly a few months later, maybe 6 months later, maybe the summer of 2025. We'd see him give an Oval Office address saying due to health reasons, he feels he's no longer up to the job and wants to put the American people first, which is why he feels it's his duty to step aside and let Vice President Kamala Harris resume the office of the president. Something like that. There's just no way he can do the job, in my opinion. I really believe that, which is why there's a lot of speculation right now about who they're going to run in 2024. Well, Roseanne Barr gave her opinion on this yesterday, saying she believes we'll see a Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton Democrat ticket this year. Watch.
Is the racist?
Donald Trump?
Right. Yeah, he's the racist who hired this guy. It's hilarious. I love that one. That one's the best for me.
Because they always accuse you of what they do.
Right.
But you got to know that. You got to know how Marxists are, it is by any means necessary. They got to lie up one side and down the other. That's what they'll do. They love to laugh at the people they've tricked, too. I've seen those parties. They love it, of how stupid the people are to believe them. Even Hillary Clinton said it. The Democrats are easy to control because most of them are stupid. She's quoted saying that.
They don't like each other. They don't like Americans. They just go out there and do whatever's necessary to grab the power. And Hillary Clinton was probably the best, as you pointed out, the best version they have of that. She will destroy anyone to try to get into elected office. I'm trying to goad her into running again because I think it would be fun if Trump ran against Clinton.
I do. Don't you think she would? I was always waiting when they're going to take out Biden.
They're putting
and
somebody
put her
in. I don't know who it's going to be. It's maybe Gavin Newsom, but it's not going to be Joe Biden.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Michelle Obama with Hillary as her vice.
Oh man, the Democratic universe might actually implode at a ticket like that. That would be something.
They'll do something because they can't lose. If they lose, they're all going to go to jail and they know it. So, or even worse than jail, which would be what? A fair trial by the American people. That would be their worst
Exposing their
nightmare.
corruption.
Or that they would have to pay back the money that they stole from us. That'd be even worse than jail, I think, for them.
In another story, the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, was of course a VIP member at the WEF's annual summit this week. He's one of the special invitees out of the 2,400 or so elites that attend this gathering each year. Klaus Schwab, he always divides everyone up into class, right? VIPs are top of the class, and Tedros, he's a VIP. He's their puppet at the WHO, carrying out the work of finalizing the negotiations between nations right now to all come on board with a new pandemic treaty, or what some call the Pandemic Accord, a binding agreement that in its current draft form will vastly expand the powers of the World Health Organization, forcing all WHO member countries to agree to hand over certain decision-making authority to them in the event of a future pandemic. That's what the draft legislation or the draft treaty says right now. Decisions like when a country should implement a lockdown, for instance, things like that. Now, currently, your elected president and state governors make those calls. Well, what if the president handed that authority or decision-making authority over to the WHO? What would that look like? Those are the types of things currently being negotiated right now. The deal has a deadline of May 2024. Here's Dr. Tedros explain the importance of getting this done. Watch this.
After we started putting a placeholder, the first that came was in the disease X is COVID. So we have experience now, and we are preparing based on that experience. A lot of assessment has been done by independent panels and experts. And based on the recommendation, many initiatives we have already started many initiatives. And then the other key, in order to have better prepared and to address the disease X, is the pandemic agreement. The pandemic agreement can bring all the experience, all the challenges that we have faced, and all the solutions into one. And that agreement can help us to prepare for the future in a better way, because this is about a common enemy. And without a shared response, starting from the preparedness, we will face the same problem as COVID. And deadline for the pandemic agreement is May 2024, and member states are negotiating. This is between countries, and I hope they will deliver this pandemic agreement by that time, on the deadline.
So, is this something we should be participating in? Well, if you remember, Donald Trump pulled out of the WHO in 2020. Then when Joe Biden was elected, he promptly reactivated our member status, and he apologized for his predecessor's rash decision, he said. I'd like to see all presidential candidates asked what they think about this pandemic treaty, especially Nikki Haley. Get her on the record if she would or wouldn't support this. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.